I'd like to call this informational hearing of the House Children and Youth Committee to order. Just a reminder that this meeting is being broadcasted and recorded, so please make sure that your cell phones are silenced. And I ask that members and guests please use the microphone when speaking and make sure that the green light is on as well when you speak. Can someone, Lexa, can you grab that door and just close it? Thank you. To get started, I would like to ask Brooke to please take the roll.
Chair Bullock,
Present.
Representatives Bellman,
Vote by designation.
Boyd, Serrato,
Vote on leave or vote? Leave.
Curry,
Vote by designation.
Fleming,
Vote by designation.
Genst, Hambidge,
Vote by designation.
Howard,
Here.
Kazim,
Leave.
Krajewski,
Leave.
McAndrew,
Leave.
Nelson,
Leave.
Powell.
Leave.
Chair Joswiak,
Here.
Representatives Allsummer, Fink, Flick,
Flick is here, yes.
Hogan, Grum-Krupa, McKenzie, Rossi, Schlegel, Watro, Zimmerman. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Brooke. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today for this informational hearing called by our committee. The focus of this committee in general has been to support the children of the Commonwealth and to provide resources that help strengthen families wherever possible, keeping families together. With that said, a recent analysis showed that 33.1% of Pennsylvania's families are headed by a single parent, which is 1% over the national average. Furthermore, 24% of Pennsylvania households are headed by a single mom and only 9% by a single dad. But what we do know is that Pennsylvania families also learn how to co-parent and work together. Research suggests that children with actively involved fathers experience increased positive effects compared to those with no paternal involvement. Some benefits include higher academic achievement, stronger math and verbal skills, greater school readiness, emotional security, higher self-esteem, and fewer behavioral problems. The purpose of today's meeting is to educate our members about the report conducted by the Advisory Committee of the Joint State Government Commission on Greater Fatherhood Involvement. As such, please let me introduce today's guest, Glenn Pasewicz. Glenn is the Executive Director of the Joint State Government Commission and is here today to discuss the recommendations from that advisory committee put forth in the report. I'll ask that all members please hold your questions until Mr. Pasewicz has finished his remarks. And with that said, I will also ask my co-chair if he had any additional opening remarks.
I do. Thank you, Chairwoman Bullock. First and foremost, I'd like to welcome our new member to the committee, Jeff Holsimer, who is from Pike County, and we welcome you, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
My comment is, every child deserves to know the security of growing up with an engaged and loving father. The role that a father plays in his child's life is truly irreplaceable. Research has taught us that fatherless correlates to higher rates of poverty, substance abuse, teen pregnancies, and teen suicides. It is essential that we continue to encourage fathers to actively engage and participate in their children's lives. I'm looking forward to hearing testimony and questions from the members on this critical topic of greater fatherhood involvement. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you, Chair Joswiak. And I concur with your opening remarks. And now I give the floor to Mr. Pasewicz. Got it.
Good, yes, thank you. Good morning. Hi, I am Glenn Pasewicz. I'm the Executive Director of the Joint State Government Commission. And first, I'd like to thank the Children and Youth Committee Chairs, Representative Bullock and Joswiak, and the members of the committee for providing us with this opportunity to present the recommendations developed in the report, Greater Father Involvement, Fostering Engagement of Fathers in Improving the Well-Being of Their Children. The full report is available on our website. For those in the audience who are not familiar with the Commission, it is the primary public policy and statutory research agency for the House and Senate and was established in 1937. Our current staff of 10 writes reports at the direction of either chamber on any topic. Our objective is to write reports so that a person who knows nothing about the particular topic can pick it up, read through it, and by the time you put it down, be able to make an informed decision or know what you need to know more about. Act 114 of 2022, known as the Greater Fatherhood Involvement Act, directed that the Commission appoint an advisory committee to, among other tasks, evaluate governmental programs and initiatives that impact fatherhood, develop a comprehensive plan that will support early connection of fathers to their children, investigate workforce development programs that assist fathers in preparing for, finding, and securing employment, research ways to involve fathers through skills-based educational programs that foster quality co-parenting relationships, consider development of conflict resolution skills training, propose changes to statutes, regulations, administrative rules, and policies that impede the development or implementation of greater father involvement measures, and make recommendations regarding the possible establishment of a long-term or permanent fatherhood commission. The advisory committee consisted of 13 members who represented different aspects of research, advocacy, and professional experiences, and who reside in different regions of the Commonwealth. They were from Erie, Pittsburgh State College, Scranton, Harrisburg, Lancaster, Montgomery County, and Philadelphia. And I'd say that this is characteristic of our advisory committees because as we see, there are problems in Philly, there are problems in Erie. They might be the same problem, but sometimes they have different solutions, they have different causes. So we try to get people from all over the state because Pennsylvania is very much different from one place to the other, to find what the common solutions can be. So these 13, they're educators, university professors and researchers, mental health providers, advocates, consultants, people with years of experience in domestic relations law, and work in the judicial branch. And importantly, many of them have lived experiences related to the issues addressed, whether as young people or as fathers themselves. The advisory committee met 5 times between June and October of 2023 in both in-person and in Zoom meetings. Our staff, as is what we usually do, we did the background research, the writing, and facilitated the meetings, while the advisory committee members considered the topics and discussed them at length. In the end, 11 recommendations were agreed to by consensus, and the final report was released in January of 2024. So moving on to the recommendations. Current efforts to improve fatherhood engagement are fragmented and uncoordinated. The approach to encouraging greater father involvement is twofold. One, on a broad societal level, the message needs to be conveyed that fathers are vital to the welfare of their children and that their contributions should be respected and applauded. Few people respond well to lectures about how they should conduct themselves. Few young men are going to pay attention to suggestions on how to be a better father when complying with these suggestions when they are a condition of a benefit conferred or a reward for compliant behavior. And a few young men are going to actively seek advice or therapy on how to be a better father. Their participation in their children's lives must be voluntary and genuine. A large part of the more global answer to the question of how to increase fatherhood involvement is to normalize it, to encourage young men to aspire to be a more involved father and feel recognized for doing so. Media portrayals of fathers can play a huge role. Social media, advertising, and visual and performing arts should be encouraged to portray fathers as actively involved in their children's lives. This kind of public media campaign needs to be coordinated and promoted by a group dedicated to spreading the message of greater fatherhood involvement. And just going off the script, I think if you look at the media representations over the past 60, 70 years, we've gone from Father Knows Best to Homer Simpson. The first recommendation is for the establishment of a permanent commission on greater fatherhood involvement in either the Department of Human Services or in DCED. And there is also support among the advisory committee for the creation of a commission as an independent and freestanding agency. And it would coordinate programs among the various state agencies, serve as a navigator to assist individuals in finding services, serve as an ombudsman to investigate complaints regarding perceived bias, help abolish stigma and discrimination against fathers and shape public opinion regarding the value of single fathers in the lives of their children, provide educational and outreach materials, provide training to agencies and social service staff in ways to interact with fathers to encourage their greater involvement, and promote the positive depiction of father involvement in visual media, including advertising and marketing materials. That was, their big recommendation. Number 2, as a rule, equal parenting time should be the default custody arrangement regardless of the age of the child. And I do believe that the standard is, from the outset, supposed to be 50-50, but there is some perceived bias that, I will say perceived, that it doesn't always work out that way, that there is a bias towards, say, the mother being the nurturer and the fathers feel that they aren't being, getting that 50-50 shot. 3, while some counties require mediation and co-parenting classes before the parties move to litigation, not all do. Consideration should be given to making these processes a statewide requirement. And that gets into mediation, conflict resolution methods, alternative dispute resolution, which Joint State did a report on. We had it out probably about 10 years ago at this point. So those are becoming increasingly popular way to avoid the cantankerous pathway through litigation. So I'll move down to number 4 instead of reading through all of that. Paternal family leave should be offered at the same level as maternity leave at a minimum. Flexible family leave should be available to allow fathers to attend parent-teacher conferences, IEP 504 meetings, medical appointments, and other decision-making meetings affecting the welfare of a child. So studies have found that workplaces that encourage greater fatherhood involvement provide benefits to the fathers as well as the employers. Fathers work harder, have more loyalty, have higher job satisfaction, and less work-family conflict when they're involved. Such policies also help recruit talented employees and can even boost stock prices when first announced. Other benefits include less risky behaviors, more altruistic social relationships, and higher incomes. Flexible schedules lead to higher levels of involvement with the children, even for low-income and non-resident fathers. The ability to work from home may also have a positive impact. While paternity leave is becoming more available in the United States, stigma regarding the unmanliness, quote unquote, of considering family and work condition decisions, concerns about demotion, lower performance evaluations, reduced pay, and benefits may lead some fathers to be reluctant to seek paternity leave. Number 6, consideration should be given to require mothers to identify the father of a child at the time of birth, unless extraordinary circumstances exist, such as the child is a product of rape. If the identity of the father is uncertain, then genetic testing should be ordered for any potential or putative father. Existing rules make it hard for an unmarried father to prove paternity. In order to claim paternity, an unmarried man must either have the cooperation of the mother or be able to convince the courts that he is the biological father. The father of a child born out of wedlock may file an acknowledgement of paternity, but only with the birth mother's consent. If she fails to consent, he must petition the court for a determination of paternity and request genetic testing. While an unmarried father can pursue a claim of paternity, it may be blocked and prevented by the presumption of legitimacy or the paternity by estoppel doctrines. Finally, in light of all the factors, doctrines, and counter-doctrines, the courts will ultimately decide paternity on a case-to-case basis with, quote, the best interests of the child, unquote, trumping all other arguments. Number 7, AOPC, the Office of Administrative Office of Pennsylvania Courts, should maintain data on custody and visitation violation complaints, enforcement, and disposition, including cases processed by non-judicial officers within the courts. Number 8, consideration should be given to encourage all counties to follow the U.S. Department of Human Services guidance that discourages the collection of child support against parents whose children are in foster care, and to dismiss any arrears that may have accrued while the child was in foster care. The unified judicial system in Pennsylvania should consider adopting the concept of family access motions. A process like one enacted in Missouri can serve as an example, where a parent can proceed pro se. The court must issue a summons within 5 days, and enforcement can include a compensatory period of visitation, custody, or third-party custody at a time convenient for the aggrieved party. Participation by the violator in counseling to educate the violator about the importance of providing the child with a continuing and meaningful relationship with both parents. Assessment of a fine of up to $500 against the violator payable to the aggrieved party. Requiring the violator to post bond or security to ensure future compliance with the court's access orders, and ordering the violator to pay the cost of counseling to reestablish the parent-child relationship. Number 10, although children and youth workers are routinely expected to search for family members when exploring placement options for foster or kinship care, special efforts should be intentionally made to identify paternal relatives of non-resident fathers who have never been married to the child's mother. The advisory committee feels it is important to remind caseworkers that these individuals frequently exist, though they may not necessarily be identified by the mother in an interview and can be easily overlooked. In general, additional efforts should be made to improve father engagement in the child welfare system. Though few studies have analyzed the benefits of involving paternal relatives, there is evidence that support from extended family can have a positive effect on a child's well-being and protection. And number 11, the final, prenatal programs should include mental health screenings for fathers and provide training to healthcare providers to encourage and welcome fathers into the prenatal process. So those are the recommendations that came from the advisory committee, and I will answer questions if I have answers. If I don't, I'll find out.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Pasowicz, for your testimony and for your work on the State Government Commission. Before I share any of my comments, are there any questions? Yes, Representative Curry.
Good morning. Thank you so much for the report. This is near and dear to my heart because of, the many fathers that I know that have huge impact in their children's lives. And, a mother of 3 having a husband who was amazing in their lives. I understand the importance of this. Some of the recommendations, I just look and think, we're already working on a lot of this. And one of the things that I just have to say is paid family leave. Paid family leave would take care of a lot of the recommendations that are put into this report. So I'm an advocate of paid family leave. I just want to say it again, to make sure that the men and fathers who play a role in their children's lives that will help in this Children and Youth Committee to improve the lives of our children is a lot of it we are working on. And so I just want to reiterate paid family leave because it is a solution to a lot of these issues. Fathers who feel like they can't be present for many things, and just making sure that we are taking care of the whole family and being inclusive of the whole family. So thank you for this report. I represent in Delaware County. We have, I'm very proud to say, the Foundation of Delaware County that has a complete area devoted to this work. Dr. O is a complete advocate. I'm sure he's involved in this somehow, some way. I talked to Representative Boyd. I said, we need to let Dr. O know about this. But I'm sure he knows about this. But I just want to thank you again for this comprehensive report. And, anything that we can do to help just know that we are here on this very important topic. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to address, I think the advisory committee recognizes that there are things going on out there, but it's a lack of coordination where people don't know what's available, and it's connecting with the fathers to say, hey, you can get help, and maybe you want to get help or you need to get help. And so they're like somebody who can help them navigate.
All right, Chairman, I just want to say one more thing. When I look, I went through here and right away, because I work on maternal health and specifically Black maternal health, I looked at the postpartum connection. That's a huge one that we're trying to work on, to be inclusive, because a lot of times we talk about the mother and that journey with the mother, but we also want to be very inclusive of the fact that in a birthing situation, there's postpartum for the fathers as well. We don't recognize that. So I'm glad that that's in this report as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Curry. Representative Grupa?
So did a lot of the language references single or unmarried fathers? Did the advisory committee analyze any data with respect to intact families versus families that were not intact? And if so, I mean, my gut reaction is that the intact family is going to be much stronger in terms of, father involvement. What can we be doing to support an intact family unit that is going to have a greater impacts on the children overall?
I think if we look at it, I think there's some statistics and data, maybe not specifically mentioned in the report, but more broadly, that say that when how much the benefit of a father provides. So certainly in an intact family, the father is presumably more present. Although, as I recall, there was some talk among the advisory committee members of, Dad was there, but he really wasn't. Right? My parents were married, but he was so busy with work and other things that he really wasn't. It's still certainly better than him not being there and not being a part of it at all. In terms of how to keep, how to help a family stay intact, possibly having some, I don't know if the word is allowances, but some provisions so that fathers, even in an intact, would have an opportunity to take time from work to be present at a 504 meeting, at an ISP, at a medical appointment, where it doesn't necessarily have to be maybe both. Maybe the dad could do it instead of the mom, or that they could both be there. And that's kind of gets back to the family leave, or the ability for a father to have that opportunity, even if they are intact, to be able to step out from the job obligation to the family obligation.
Thank you. Representative Flick?
Thank you, Chair. And thank you very much for your testimony. I sort of want to echo what Rep. Curry said as far as my personal relationship to this also, and going back to my father. But I've had the privilege to speak to your organization a number of times, and the 13 members. I've been to Philadelphia twice to meet with them and had a number of Zoom calls. So it certainly has to be attacked from every angle, not just item number 2, the stigma. Let's face it, we got some really bad dads out there, and we need to, and moms, to be fair, but we need to educate them, we need to support them, and we need to, do everything possible as your testimony provided. I have, on a personal note from the court side, I think we need major improvements there. We need to work with AOPC more on that to collect better data, because right now the data just isn't there. So whatever we can do to help with the AOPC part, or with the Court of Common Pleas, specifically family court, to gather that data and maybe request those courts to report, whether it's monthly or quarterly, incidents from both parents. That would certainly help bolster some of this. I am proud to say on the Shared Parenting Act that I have, House Bill 1684, which is about to sit in judiciary, A version of that bill has now passed in 4 states. So about 6 months ago, I flew to Missouri for the passage of the bill out there. Kentucky was the first state to pass it. And the data that Kentucky has really showcases some of the involvements now with fathers, some of the data that's coming up through Kentucky, Arkansas, and Florida. So those 3 states, along with Missouri, have taken action that I believe have certainly helped fathers in this arena. Going back to the AOPC part, and I believe it was question number 7, do you have any ideas of how we would request that either the Court of Common Pleas or how the AOPC would work with those courts, family courts, to get that data? Would there be a website that each incident, so if Nancy calls Jeff or says, hey, he didn't drop my kid off for this, how does that data get collected? Because oftentimes it's of a vindictive nature. So thank you.
AOPC has a big data gathering operation, so I don't know exactly what mechanism they would use, but I know that they have a pretty strong network of data gathering, so it might be a matter of adding a couple data elements to whatever their usual instrument is that they're pulling from, that people are reporting to. So I
appreciate that. I think maybe the problem with that is you only have data when the data is entered. And if we can't count on these 67 counties to truly enter these incidents into the AOPC database, then the data is only as good as it is. So I mean, I will be happy to work with you on coming up with creative ways maybe to get that data reported. So thank you again.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Flick. Next, we have Representative Bellman.
How you doing? Thank you for your testimony today. I had a question on recommendation number 6 regarding the paternity of the child. And I think right now, I've been hearing a lot of stories of just people determining the paternity of a child. So I just wanted to get your feedback on just talk a little bit more about it, but then also if the paternity of the child is determined, how or what considerations are given to the mother in the case that it's a surprise paternity and that there might be some type of retaliation to the mother for that surprise paternity as well?
That I'll say I don't know how they would handle that. I mean, that did not come up during the discussions with the advisory committee. Like, so what would we do if the mother, if there's some danger, if she's worried about that and she doesn't want to, for her own sake or for the safety of the child, record paternity. And that could fall under the clause unless extraordinary circumstances exist. Then there could be some, I don't want to say excuse, but a provision that would allow her to provide for her to not do that. But that actually did not come up during the discussions. So, yeah, I don't know. We could go back and revisit that at another iteration of, or however we would proceed from here forward.
Yeah, I've been in conversations about that, and people have suggested that we order every mother to get a paternity test, and just to determine if the father is actually the father. But it's always that consideration that if it is a surprise and it doesn't come back as suggested, that there could be retaliation against the mother, and then you're opening up a woman to a domestic situation that she probably wouldn't be in if the court didn't order it. But I would definitely just take that in consideration too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Bellman. Representative Hogan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for the work. But the report discusses the idea of expanding prenatal mental health screening in expectant fathers. And I was just a little curious about kind of what that looked like, what it would accomplish. And my wife's probably going to kill me for saying it this way, but I am an expectant father now and curious as to, again, kind of what this would accomplish and what it's looking for.
Right. I think what they're thinking about is that the mental health challenges that people might have can be exacerbated by childbirth or having a new child. So if the fathers were to say accompany to prenatal visits, and as part of the care, and they talk to the practitioners, talk to the mothers, and and they, how are you doing? How are things? If they would include the fathers in those discussions, then they could maybe highlight what are potential problems that could be going down the road or that they're facing, and sort of loop them into the services that would be provided to the mothers, so to the extent that mental health services are provided during prenatal care. I know a lot of times prenatal care is, even for the mothers, is less than it would be ideally based on the providers or the availability of providers. So I think that the idea is that they would have the fathers participate at some of the prenatal screenings and the visits, so that if there are any red flags, if something pops up, the practitioner and the father and the mother could maybe come up with some solution, or discuss it to some extent.
So is that more, I guess, kind of a cultural shift that we should be having as a society, or is that more of certain programs should be providing that type of care in state law or state programs?
I think maybe in terms of a societal shift, there's been for decades now an idea that mental health should be treated and considered as medical health, and not necessarily something that people need to hide, that people need to be afraid to discuss. Again, getting back to matters of stigma. So from a society, there should be a societal change in the attitude towards treating mental health. More specifically, I think that could be something that comes out of, say, the care provider community, that they would develop a battery of questions or considerations that would include a father at the visits.
Yeah, and I just to wrap up, also I want to thank you. In your opening testimony, you mentioned kind of the portrayal of fathers in pop culture and our media, and I think especially right now, young men especially need positive role models in a variety of mediums, whether it's in their own personal life or seeing it in pop culture as well. And I think that would go a long way in contributing to this concern. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Hogan, and congratulations. Representative Alsamer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too would like to agree. I appreciate your testimony here today. Just a quick question on the beginning. Under your recommendations, you talked about social media, advertising, visual and performing arts. Something that I see a lot of from the youth today is gaming and video gaming, online gaming, and it seems to be where there's a lot of violent content and a lot of destructive social type behavior that can go on in that. And I'm wondering, did the commission look at that and take that into consideration?
The short answer is no. They didn't look at that aspect of the media or of media. And I guess the long answer is also no. They didn't. We didn't look into depictions of life in gaming and how they could maybe they could be a little bit different. We could try to come up with lots of exciting flashing lights in motion that aren't necessarily destructive portrayals, but something more, something that'd be a little bit better for a role model, Minecraft, or there's one where they build a farm, or build a zoo or something. But yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
As a gaming mom, I'll let you know, there are some storylines that do have some positive male role model figures that I've seen, and actually follow some of those storylines with my children. So there are some depictions of positive male role models in some of those games.
Thank you. I agree with you. There are sadly there's an awful lot of that material out there that I believe has a real negative impact.
Understood.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Representative Rossi.
Number 8 states child support should be discouraged for children in foster care and anything in arrears be dismissed. Why is this being encouraged when the child is their financial responsibility? Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think part of that stems from the fact that a lot of times the children are in foster care for, obviously they're there for a reason. And if they're removed from a home that can't provide for them, the idea is that the fathers, and it probably for the mothers too, but in this case for the fathers, that they can enter a cycle where they can't afford to maintain, to pay child support. So it ends up that the kids are maybe going to stay in foster care longer because the father can't pay, so he loses some of the custody rights or the visitations, and they possibly have a driver license suspension. So then the father can't drive to work, so then the father can't earn money, so then the father is even less likely to be able to pay for the child care, for the child support. So the idea being, well, that if the child is in foster care, they're already in some ways being cared for. So it kind of pulls the father out of that cycle of deepening indebtedness to the child care system.
But could that go the other way where the father doesn't try to get the child back because now he's out of it? Because my office gets a lot of calls from dads that don't want to pay child support, so that very much concerns me.
That could be the case, yeah. I'm not.
Thank you.
Representative Flick for the second and last time.
I greatly appreciate it, Chair. Thank you so much. Sort of following up on Rep. Rossi with the financial part of it, has the commission studied this at a federal level at all as far as Title IV-D funding and perhaps using some of the Title IV-D incentive funds to help sponsor some of these programs, if you're familiar with the Title IV-D system?
To my knowledge, no, we didn't.
Okay, I just know in my county, 2 years ago, that Title IV-D funding, which is really supposed to be used to help out this entire system. It started in the mid-1970s in the Carter administration, then expanded under the Clinton administration. I just think some of those funds, what we did in Lycoming County a couple years ago was actually, I don't even know how ethical it was, use those funds to give domestic relation workers bonuses, which is a complete conflict of interest when you're giving bonuses to the people determining who's paying how much. So I would maybe encourage you to look at some other states and how they're using the federal uses of Title IV-D funding. Right. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you, Representative Flick. Seeing no more questions from the other members, Chairman Joswiak, would you have any closing questions and remarks?
Real quick, yes. I'd just like to touch on this paid family leave.
Yeah.
So you have in here that it should be the same level as maternity leave. How, at a minimum, how long is that?
Yeah, I don't know. What is the family? I'm not sure.
12 weeks?
I think it's for some reason, whenever I hear this, the number 14 pops into my head, but I think it's 12. Yeah.
So is there a maximum level, number of times?
Well, I guess that would depend on what the I don't know. It's 12 weeks, but I don't know how much beyond that it could go. I guess an employer could extend as much as they want to.
So that's a good segue to my next question. Are employers already doing this?
I don't know how many are offering that. I think probably there are some, and this would formalize it. The idea is that it would be formalized so that all, because a lot of the fathers who are not present are working in jobs that I would think would be very difficult for them to be allowed to take any sort of extended leave. What is it? 1/4 of single fathers are living in earning like $12,000 a year or less. So I would assume that that means that there, a lot of them are in jobs that aren't going to really be amenable to providing any sort of extended leave.
So my last question is, so if the mother's on FMLA, or you want the father to be on, would this only be under certain circumstances where maybe the mother had a serious delivery or some issue that the father must be there?
I think the idea from the advisory committee was that it would be an equal footing. So if the mother gets as
I'm
much as
sorry
she
to hear
wants, that from the advisory committee's idea is that it would be an equal footing. So if the mother gets it, the father would get something just the same.
Thank you for your testimony, and I won't have any further comments.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you, Mr. Pasowicz. I will get this correct, Pasowicz, for your testimony today. I truly appreciate the time that you spent with the panel and the committee on fatherhood to publish this report. I've heard some of the comments from my colleagues, and I just wanted to share some feedback on my part and additional questions. I concur with Representative Curry's comment around paid family leave, and also want to echo a bill that I have on unpaid parental leave for 4 hours per year that would allow parents, regardless of gender, to attend those parent-teacher conferences and go to the school for various activities, the school play, and those things that may happen during the day. And that would be unpaid parental leave. And I think it addresses one of the recommendations I saw in the report. I also wanted to know that some of the fathers were concerned about taking time off, taking advantage of paid family leave and other benefits that may be afforded them because they're concerned about how it may impact their own success at their jobs, their own advancement at work, or their reduction in pay. Arguments that often are used against women in the equal pay argument. So when we look at the recently passed in the House gender-neutral equal pay argument that seeks to address the seniority system on a gender-neutral basis so that parents can be able to take that time without thinking that it may impact their standing at work. All of these things are important. One of the points that you mentioned around trying to keep families out of the courts through conflict resolution, I also agree that we should take every step to keep a family out of court, because once a family is in court, it just becomes more of a challenge and, I guess, an adversarial relationship among those parties involved, when it doesn't need to be. One of the questions I had was in regards to whether or not the committee had looked at how we can reunite or keep united incarcerated fathers. And we know that our prison system overwhelmingly is male, and our fathers. I visit our local county jails in Philadelphia every year on Martin Luther King Day when I meet with the men in that facility, and I ask how many of them have children at home. Overwhelmingly, the hands are raised. How can we work together to keep incarcerated fathers involved with their children so that when they do return home, that they can reunite with their families?
The advisory committee didn't look at that particularly, but I know from a previous report that we did at Joint State a few years ago on the children of incarcerated parents, that the prisons, at least at the state level, the state correctional institutions do have visitation that involves, at least it involves mothers that I'm aware of, and they have visitation rooms and such where the mothers can interact with their children in an appropriate surrounding. So I could imagine that there could be a similar setup for fathers as well, if there isn't already. But that was not something that the advisory committee addressed.
Thank you for that. Again, thank you for your testimony today and for your work again with the committee and with producing this report. I think the members all understand the role that fathers play in our children's lives, and any father figure, whether it's the father, your grandfather, your uncle, the role that men can play in the lives of children in improving their outcomes, improving their outcomes in school, and in the community as well. So we thank you again for joining us today and If there aren't any other questions from the committee, this informational hearing is dismissed. Thank you.
Thank you.